the economic, season that we're in, a lot of people would call it a storm. I think that's probably an accurate description in some levels. But when we're going through the rate of inflation that we've gone through, when we're going through recession, when there's all these economics factors going on that are creating a storm, there's actually a way that you can thrive and grow and make it one of the best seasons that you've had in business. So I'm really excited to share that with you today. Stay tuned, and I'm going to share with you everything I've learned having gone through a couple of these myself. So I had one of the most valuable and expensive and painful and difficult and amazing at the same time business educations back in 2007, 2008, when the housing market crashed and we had a recession and we had massive economic challenges, not only in our country, but worldwide. And having gone through that, I ended up losing the business that I was in. I went bankrupt for $1 million. And it was super painful, but I also learned a ton. And as I was coming out of that and licking my wounds, I really had to, evaluate and say, what went right, what went wrong, what should I do differently next time? Because it wasn't by any means the first time I had failed in business, but it was definitely the grandest, most painful, most public failure I'd ever had, because I had around 50 employees and about 25 subcontractors working for me. I had hundreds of clients. We were doing millions of dollars. And I simply didn't understand what good financial management, was about. And I didn't understand a lot of the things that I'm going to share with you today that I would, now know very well. I paid for my education, but if I can help you avoid some of the challenges that I went through and show you how you can actually really prosper and grow, then that would be an amazing result from our time today. And so there's a few people that through that time really taught me more about entrepreneurship than I had learned in the past. And one of them is a good friend of mine and somebody that I've worked with for, 10 plus years now. And his name is Tim Petrie. He runs a CPA firm called HD Davis. And when I came to him, my taxes were a disaster. I owed the IRS almost six figures because I had totally screwed up payroll taxes and a bunch of things that I didn't know how to do correctly. And I foolishly thought I knew what I was doing. I had dug a big hole for myself. I hadn't filed taxes in a couple of years, which was a terrible idea. I had just done all the wrong things. And I was just barely trying to get on my feet. I was having trouble making rent, buying groceries, and getting, my new company started, because I knew I built the first business through advertising and marketing and just great sales. And so I realized, well, I love marketing. I love advertising. I love sales. I love helping people build websites like I've done for myself and a handful of people before then. So I pivoted into that, and that's where Business Marketing Engine was born back in 2007. So 15 years later, I can look back and see what I noticed in the moment, but I really appreciate at a deep, deep level now. And that is my friend Tim. When I came to him, I said, hey, here's where I'm at. I'm broke. I don't know, what's going to be involved in this. And he said, you know what? He's like, Gabe, I'm in this for the long haul. Why don't you help me out with my website? Maybe there's some stuff you can help me with. And I'm just going to take care of resolving all these issues for you with the IRS. And he charged me a ridiculously low fee. He didn't even charge me for a bunch of stuff he should have. And it's because Tim believes the same thing I believe, that relationships come first. And if you're willing to take really good care of people, everything else works out. And that's the approach that Tim took with me from day one. His whole team is like that. He's gone from being successful when I met him to being massively successful, owns multiple companies, and just has an incredible team. Every single one of that I've interacted with and worked with are just amazing humans like him. And it's all from that heart of service of how do we take great care of people? How do we play the long game? And if we stick with them and help them work this out, and they're willing to change and grow too, because I know Tim wouldn't have kept me if I kept not paying my taxes and doing things he told me to do. It is a two-way street. But if you're really willing to take that long view, then out of that, you can have really productive, positive relationships. and you can build an empire. And it comes from really having those relationships. Because Tim's taking great care of me, he's the only person I recommend. I've sent him a ton of business. I've sent him big clients. He sacrificed a little bit of revenue and money up front. And I know he's made it over and over and over, which I'm so happy for him, because he really showed up with a heart of service. So the first thing to remember when we're in the middle of tough times financially, when we're going through economic things, when everything feels like it's falling down, is just ask yourself, how can I treat people right? How can I show up in the relationship and honor that relationship first? And then everything else works out the right way. Oftentimes you get to have long-term relationships. There's other times where you may not be connected with those people again, but when you lay your head on the pillow at night that you did the right thing, and that's truly what will carry you through. The second thing to really pay attention to is make sure that you're focusing on profits over revenue. And this is hard during economic challenges like we're going through. It's hard when you're starting up. It's hard on multiple different fronts, depending on what season you're on business. But I lost my first business because I didn't understand profitability, and I thought that revenue solved everything. But in reality, if I hire you and pay you $2,000 to do something and it costs you $1,900 to deliver it, you didn't profit anything, because you have to pay taxes, you have overhead, you have things you're not paying attention to. It's not enough of a profit margin. You're actually going in the negative. And so it's easy to want to chase the next deal. And if you're in a stressed position, it's easy to want to take something on just to get the cash flow. But there are very few times where that will actually move you forward. You do need both. You need revenue to have profit, but the primary thing to focus on is profit. And that's why, after going through that experience, realizing that I knew nothing about finances, I had no financial intelligence, I was totally winging it, I decided to spend a few years really learning about financial intelligence and implementing systems that work. A great starting place, especially for smaller businesses, or if you don't have financial controls in place yet, is to read the book Profit First. It's a great book by Mike Michalowicz. And the process and the strategies and the principles in there are excellent. As you grow and change, you'll need to make your system simpler and more sophisticated at the same time, if that makes any sense. You'll know when you get there. But understanding profit is, being your target is your first profit, your first, priority. That's going to make a huge difference for you. So don't take on work. Don't take on things that won't make you profitable, because the profitable companies have no challenges surviving economic storms. The companies with really low margins can't make it. I went through that. I know it from personal experience, and I don't want you to be in that same position. The third thing that can really help, and this is something to explore carefully and think through and really be wise about and get input on, but you do need to be ready to pivot and adapt, because what your market needs today is not necessarily what they're going to need tomorrow. And economic factors, political factors, environmental factors, lots of other things can impact what your clients and what your audience needs from you. So looking back, 2.5 years now, 2 years, whatever it is, to when, the pandemic hit, I saw people go out of business because they had no profits. They didn't have healthy financial, things in place. But I also saw people that saw opportunities and said, you know what, I can be really profitable and change my manufacturing and manufacture masks. I also saw people who ran massively successful, large in-person events say, all right, we're going to make the investment because we're profitable, and we're going to switch to doing all virtual events. And a lot of my friends now actually stayed in virtual because they're delivering a better experience more profitably and getting better results for the people that come to those. So we also need to be open and aware of how can we pivot when necessary. But you really can only pivot if you have cash and credit in hand, so that you can have a little bit of a cushion to make that change, because launching a new business, pivoting the direction of your business, or making big changes always takes longer than we think it's going to change. It typically takes 2 or 3 times longer, no matter how we plan. And so it's good to be in a position where you have the resources to do that. But no matter what, I want you to remember that if you're facing challenges, if you're afraid, if you're uncertain about what's going on, these economic, challenges, the storms we face, they're actually the times when the businesses that do things right, when they focus on relationships, when they focus on profitability and remain profitable, and when they iterate and pivot as they need to, these are the businesses that have explosive growth. So this is a massive time of opportunity. It's a really positive thing for you. Somebody said to me, and I wish I could remember who told me because I want to give them credit, but somebody said to me, never waste a good crisis. So when you have a crisis come up, use that as a leverage point to make the changes that maybe you've been waiting on, to change your behavior and to really up-level your company, because when you do that, that's going to allow you to be successful. As I've been saying all this week, I'd love to hear what you thought of the show. So if you stayed all the way to the end, just drop a comment, even if it's just an emoji, thumbs up, or, thanks. I'd love to see who's actually watching all the way to the end. I also want to know if you're listening to the podcast on audio, you can send an email to gabearnold@bmuweb.com. But I just love to hear your feedback. What do you like about the show? What should we change? Anything that you want? I'm here to serve you. I want to make sure that you have the resources from an entrepreneurial standpoint. I also want to share things that will help you market and grow your business more successfully. Because if you build an engine that continually does those same things, the right things on a consistent basis, that's how your business grows. And that's why we have the Engine Builder Show. I appreciate you tuning in today. I look forward to seeing you on tomorrow's show.